Hello, welcome to my channel. I create videos on my experience with WGU and being a Master's of Science student. I have to remember my program. It's not a Master of Education, it's Master of Science, but it's in education. So it's in Curriculum and Instruction. And generally I make videos on my experience overall with the program and kind of how it's going and what it's like to aim towards doing the accelerated path, which is the path by which you try to get done in 6 months, though it might be extended to 1 year. In my circumstance, still trying to suss that out. I'm kind of at the point by which I could continue working the way I am and maybe finish, so we'll see. Hopefully I can get it done. It would be nice not to pay for another term, so that would be ideal. So I can just give you an update from the last month. So far in the program, I've completed almost 6 courses. I did submit my last assessment. It just hasn't been marked. So for some reason, if it's not approved as competent, I would have to go back and make some changes. And that hasn't happened so far in the program. So far I have always gotten like a check mark, like you've passed, it's good to go to the next course. So that equates to 6 courses, in my case equated to 16 performance assessments, and majority of them were papers. There were 2 that were presentations. And since the beginning, I've got 5 of the Excellence Awards. There was a point by which they were like back to back. I was getting them and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is common. But it seems that I was just kind of on a roll and doing really well. I don't believe everyone gets them. I think that it just depends on your evaluator and if they just feel like you took it to the next level, like the writing quality and then your understanding of the topics. So it seems like in some of the courses I was doing really well, and I feel like I was expecting to do really well because they was in my realm. And so I should just mention that in this video, I'll talk a little bit about what I liked in the last month, what I learned, and what I'll probably change, and that's what I've been doing in the other month review videos. I'll just say in my last video, I talked a little bit about some of the challenges, and I do feel like this month has been really challenging, and I expected it, but not so much. So yes and no, I kind of was thinking it would be hard. So I went back to teaching in the university setting, which is what I do every fall. But I'm teaching 2 courses, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I also work another job and I also do some freelance work. So it's just been a little bit of a whirlwind to fit everything in while trying to do a master's degree. So I found that instead of trying to work throughout the whole week, well, I wasn't. I was generally working on the weekends, but I was still thinking about it throughout the week. I really only have 1 day during the week, and that would be either a Saturday or Sunday, and I try desperately not to do it on both days, or else I feel kind of exhausted by the process. So there was a couple weeks ago, I literally hit a wall where I did not want to work at all, and I was kind of surprised. I feel like I've come out of that. What happened was I finished one of the papers that I had half done, and then I just quickly did the final one, which is what I'd submitted today. But let's just say the one previous to this, the one that I half did and didn't want to do, I decided that I would do it as less than the 10 pages that I was doing before. And I really only wrote 6 pages for it, and it passed. And so it kind of was encouraging to me. It was like, well, maybe, Justin, you're pushing yourself a little bit more than you need to. And so simplifying it actually made it a little bit easier. So I really simplified the last one I submitted, which I had to do because honestly, the last paper I did was so outside the scope of what I'm used to. So I had to redevelop curriculum for a grade 8 American history class. So I'm a university instructor in the creative fields and I teach in Canada. So it just felt completely different. Now, as a curriculum instructional designer, you don't have to be a content matter expert, though I just found that I had to research a bit. Like I kind of know the foundations of the American Revolution, but I had to look into that. And part of it was finding these primary sources that we were going to integrate into the curriculum, and I didn't really know what that looked like. So I had to research like speeches and contributors to like people who really made a contribution to the American Revolution. So what I mean is, like, I didn't have as much to talk about in my last paper because I couldn't really elaborate on all these in these like nuances and idiosyncrasies that I knew about in my own practice. So I just kept it really concise, really basic. It was only 4 or 5 pages. I feel like I hit right the points for what they were. I didn't go beyond that. And I'll wait and see if I am able to pass it with that approach. I hope. I really don't want to have to go back and do it. I didn't really love the assignment. Even though it really doesn't require me to be an expert at American history, it just felt like a little bit forced for me to have to write a curriculum about it, when I really was hoping for my program to focus more on my interests, which is within my teaching realm. So now to kind of move towards like, well, what did I like in this term, this month, I guess you could say. So there was a few times that I booked a meeting with my instructor, and I guess you could say I didn't really prepare for that meeting. I probably should have. You probably shouldn't just go into the meeting and be like, oh, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to do. I mean, you should start to learn the material and then talk about some of the challenges. But I did open up the conversation to her and just basically said, well, what do you see as the challenges that most students face in this assignment or this assessment? And then I said, are there parts that students miss? Like, is there kind of a component that a lot of people read in the criteria, but they don't write about? And she was able to basically answer that. And it kind of filled in the gaps for me. It were things that I probably would have missed as well if I didn't address the clarity that she was talking about, or the specificity. So I found like that was something I really liked, was booking that meeting, opening up with that question, but again, still reading a bit about the content, so it's not like you're completely unfamiliar with the topic of what you're going to be writing about. And it just really points you in the right direction. So just a few other things. I did ask her kind of like what were some kind of the nuances in the paper. So meaning like in the criteria, it talked at one point about the instructional setting, to write about that, my instructional setting, and another time it said instructional context. Now, it could just seem like semantics, like, oh, those are similar concepts, settings and context. But she broke it down and she said, no, they're actually very different. Well, not very, but they're different, they're distinct. And so when you're writing, you have to address, are you talking about the context or the setting? Now, if you're in like a math degree or in a business degree or whatever, this isn't relevant, but it is relevant to kind of look closely at the words they're using, because they do matter. So for example, in curriculum and instruction, there's a difference between a unit plan, a lesson plan, and a standard, a course standard, or a project objective. Like, those are all slightly different things, and in some cases they're quite different. And it might feel like they're similar, that you can just kind of interchange the concepts, but I feel like you have to learn the differences. Now, what I liked was I was able to talk to my instructor and just basically ask her to define the differences for me. So I could go online and read about it, but how does WGU evaluator see the differences? And she basically said this and this. And so that really helped me. So that's kind of like the main thing of what I liked this month, was really just working closely with my instructor. And I feel like she got to know me. She actually said something that was interesting. Because I work in post-secondary and Canadian and in the arts field, it's a little bit of an anomaly compared to all the other students in my program. So she said she had talked to a manager in the evaluation department, and they were talking about one of the presentations. And then I guess one thing came to another, and they were actually talking about one of my assignments. And she said, oh yeah, that assignment stood out, or I remember that part. So what it kind of made me think is like, oh, I guess they're all in communication, the instructors and the evaluators to some degree. And it's kind of nice to know that they care about their work enough to kind of remember some of the things that were actually discussed. Because they were talking about some of the great things that I had written about. And, but not just that, they were just kind of striking up a conversation about me as a student. And so sometimes it can feel like you're a little bit alone in the WG process because you're just grinding away at work. But again, if you start booking appointments with your instructor, I feel like you can build a relationship. And I feel like I'm going to miss this specific instructor that I'm with for 4 courses within, once I'm done these 4 courses, because I really like her. She's just like a pleasant human. Like, we talk about where she lives, where I live. We've talked about kind of family things, and I mean, it doesn't get too private, but it just feels like she cares and I care about like I care enough to kind of book an appointment to kind of ask her about herself, so that it feels like a little bit of a bond that we're creating. So I feel like, you know, I've watched other WGU students say, oh, I don't need to worry about the instructors. But to me, it adds a little bit of richness to the learning experience. Otherwise, it can just feel a little bit dry. So, yeah. So what did I learn about, you know, what I learned about in this month that's different than the other months? What I learned is I had mentioned in my last update that the instructor gave me what's called a jump start. That's what she's called it. I think a coordinated effort among instructors in a selection of courses created this document to basically help you better write about your performance assessments. And so basically they're kind of cueing your attention, like they're highlighting, okay, write about 2 of these examples and here are some things to think about. It just takes the criteria one step further. Now that's not new, I already knew about that. But what she started doing was emailing me them at the onset of a course. And I found that that was really helpful because it's a bit hard to find at the back end in the portal. So she was emailing them, and I always use that to start my assignment. I look at it and I almost have it as a reference alongside the criteria of what you're writing about from just the basic evaluation tool. And what I learned is that not all instructors do provide a jump start. And so you could ask your instructor if there is anything that they do that helps kind of act as a resource beyond some of the cohort groups that they have and some of the other textbook readings. Maybe they do have something similar, or they could create something. Maybe that's an opportunity that you could say, you know, I've heard other students talk about this jumpstart. Do you think, you know, you could create something, or have you ever thought about creating something? And I just found like it really helped guide my writing a lot more than just looking at the evaluation. So something else that I learned, this is a bit separate than my program, is you can do subsequent degrees at WGU. So originally I had read online that that if you do a Master's of Education, you can't do more than one. So I couldn't do one in Learning and Technology and then another one in Instructional Design because the courses are too similar. But what I discovered is my program is a Master's of Science. It's not a Master's of Education, even though it's within education. So I could hypothetically do another Master's, which is kind of the reason why this came up for me is I was noticing on LinkedIn and other platforms, like, why were some people doing like multiple masters at WGU? And when I talked to a program mentor manager about this, he said that you don't have to redo all the research courses. So there's a bunch of courses that you don't have to do all over again. Basically, you would only have to do the courses that you haven't done, as well as a whole new capstone project. And this is particular to a master's degree in the teaching college. I don't know what it's like in the other colleges. And therefore, it's a more accelerated program. I don't know if they make you do some other courses as well besides the ones you missed in your previous degree and then the capstone. Maybe there is like another course that you have to do. So I just thought it was interesting. I don't know if that's something I would consider, but I do like the idea of like one of the other masters in education. And I like the idea of that I could do it down the road if I wanted to, and it wouldn't be me redoing all the research courses. Now, I did learn that the program I'm in is being overhauled, and it's a whole different curriculum. My mentor told me they did this because I think the curriculum is a bit outdated. I think it was made in like the last 10 years. It's been the same. And so they want to kind of bring it up to more contemporary curriculum and instruction curriculum, which is interesting to say, to meet the current needs of the world, the working world and the education world. And so if I was to, let's say, drop out and redo this program, I would actually be starting a different program. So it just shows, I learned that, you know, they are updating their curriculum. Maybe it's not every single year. I don't know, maybe it is. But a whole program overhaul does happen sometimes as well. My program mentor manager, I also struck up a conversation with him through email, and he said that they are creating some other types of programs that might not be a full master's degree. Maybe it's like a postgraduate diploma or certificate for those who don't want to do like a full-on capstone project. So that was interesting. I don't know when they're rolling that out. Something else I learned is that nowadays I don't know if it's for all courses at WGU, but at least the ones in the master's teaching college, you have to do what's called a course planning tool before you start a course. So basically, it's a quick assessment that isn't assessed for grades or anything. It's just to assess your pre-existing knowledge. It's going to ask you a bunch of questions, and it's going to basically say how competent you are prior to doing the course. And I think that score goes to your program mentor and probably their whole school evaluation, so that they can see, well, how are people going into the assessment and how are people coming out of it? Like, are they learning through the different learning material and objective and performance assessments? So you have to do it. I think it's non-negotiable. My understanding, I haven't done one, it only takes 10 minutes, and it just gives you like a bit of a scoring about how much you know prior to doing the course. So it takes extra time. Some people could say that's busy work, which is a little bit annoying, but I don't see it as a problem. I think it might actually help you know what you should be focusing on when you're going through the material, because it's basically asking questions in relation to that course. So that's something new. It's a requirement, and I'm almost certain that it's actually a requirement for most programs / most courses. So what will I change as I move forward? So I have been doing what I said last time in my last update, was I'm just doing one assessment a week. I have actually got a little bit behind. I think I'm a week behind my schedule to finish on a 6-month mark. So this isn't really a change. I'm just going to be sticking with my one assessment a week. I might have to somehow squeeze in 2 assessments during a week if I want to complete it on time. So that would be a change, is I have to figure out where I'm going to do that. Basically, I'll do it in a spot where I feel like I know a lot about the content, and I'm just going to plow through. It's not going to be easy because I'm working a lot, and I don't like doing a ton of assessments during the week. But if I want to finish in 6 months, I have to do it. And it would really suck if I'm just like a week off of finishing, like extended the 6 months. Like, I really wouldn't want to do that. So I'm still going to try my best to keep on track, and we'll just see how that goes. So hopefully that gives you an insight, kind of some insight on how my month went. Let me know how your month is going. I know a lot of people are watching some of my original videos because they're probably starting brand new, and they like videos like this to help guide their own learning and their own learning process. And so I hope to continue making these videos. So maybe next month you'll see me again, or I'll just post another one when I feel like I have something to talk about. So I will talk to you next time around. See ya.